Good morning. It's December 5th today, and we're in Hosea chapter 1. And now we begin the minor prophets with the last 12 books of our Old Testament. And they can be a little bit difficult to read when we don't know their context. And that's why it's important to study the context of the minor prophets, to know who they're talking to and what period of Israel's history they're talking. It gives us a lot of background to know what the message is and why this message is coming. Generally, these 12 minor prophets agree in their message, and they kind of function as lawyers against the people in a case that God is bringing against them for breaking the covenant that he made with them. And so he's giving the reasons for what has happened, and he's telling them the consequences for that. And in Hosea, in particular, there's a lot of vivid imagery that compares what Israel has done or what Judah has done to adultery. And the image is that there was a covenant, like a marriage covenant, a contract that was made, and one party has been unfaithful to that covenant. And so Hosea is a vivid picture. I think that the things that happened in Hosea actually did happen. That Hosea himself, as a prophet, was called to marry a woman of unfaithfulness, a prophet, as she's called here in the book. And it's a picture of what God had when he found Israel as they were slaves in Egypt, and he brought them out and made a covenant with them up Mount Sinai and had a relationship with them. There were expectations on both sides about how that relationship was going to go. Most importantly, that relationship was built on love and faithfulness. And so God is showing that he has been faithful to his side of the covenant, but his people have not. And so they represent this woman of unfaithfulness that Hosea is called to marry. But even more than that, there's a place here, verse 6 of Hosea chapter 1, where Hosea and his unfaithful wife are going to have children, and the children get unusual names. And the second two are called, a daughter that she has is called Lo Ruhama, which means not loved. And the third then is a son who's called Lo Ami, or not my people. And this is obviously a terrible thing to be naming your kids. Why would you call your kids not loved or not my people, not belonging to me? But they are pictures again of what's happened with God's people. They have come to such a place where they've refused to be his people, and therefore are forsaking the love that God has shown towards them. Fortunately, in the New Testament, it does tell us that God is making a new covenant with his people, and that those who were formerly called not loved will be called loved, and those who were formerly called not his people will be called his people. And in the New Testament, that takes on new significance, as well as the Gentiles are included in that too. So God has always had a heart for the Gentiles. He has always been a God of all peoples, of all nations, and this becomes explicit in the New Testament in so many different ways than it had been in the Old Testament. Although in the Old Testament you can find it everywhere too if you're looking carefully for it. But the precious promise is that God even brings redemption out of frustration, out of adultery, out of unfaithfulness. He is faithful, and therefore he brings redemption even when we continue to stray from him, even intentionally doing so. So ultimately, the good news of the gospel is that that it depends on God and not on us.